Welcome back. So far in this session, we've covered the mistaken goals of undue attention and power. And since power struggles can really wear us down, we need all the tools we can get to both prevent them and manage them in the moment. In this next section, I'm going to tell you about 4 more tools parents love when it comes to managing power struggles and getting better cooperation from kids. Before I do, however, I want to cover a quick question that often comes up about this time. How do you know the difference between the mistaken goals of undue attention and power? Well, to answer that question, we go back to the 2 clues. How is the adult feeling and how is the child responding? If it's undue attention, the adult feels irritated and annoyed, like we did with that whiny voice or the interruptions or the helplessness. And the parent tends to react to the behavior with reminding and coaxing. If the mistaken goal is power, the adult feels challenged, provoked, and the parent tends to respond by fighting back, yelling, punishing, or trying to make the child comply. For the child's response, if the mistaken goal is undue attention, the child is typically satisfied with that attention fix for a while, but then comes back a few minutes later. The behavior stops temporarily and then starts again. If the mistaken goal is power, when we raise our voice or give a reprimand, the child typically raises his voice in response. The behavior intensifies with the intent to prove who's boss. The child feels he's won if the adult gets upset or angry, even if he does have to eventually comply. So look for the 2 clues, how you're feeling and how the child is responding. Once you know the mistaken goal, then we can go to the appropriate tool in the toolbox to nip that situation in the moment and prevent it from happening in the future. Now, let's get to those tools that will get your kids cooperating more and complaining less. Let's start with decide what you will do. This tool is beautifully aligned with the empowerment paradigm. We can't control another person. We can only control ourselves. With decide what you will do, we are going to use what we can control, ourselves, to manage what you can't control, our kids. And it works to not only get the cooperation we're looking for, but also teach our kids real-life lessons. First, you'll pick some repeated misbehavior you want to manage. This works great for getting kids to take on responsibility that they're capable of, but they just don't normally do, or that we have to nag them about, like emptying the backpacks or lunch boxes, or putting laundry in the hamper, cleaning up toys. Let's use lunch boxes as our example. Start by deciding what you're willing to do and what age-appropriate responsibility needs to be on your kids' shoulders. Make sure you've done any necessary training and then, in a calm moment, reveal in advance. I'm happy to make your lunch every morning before school, as long as your lunchbox has been emptied out and it's on the shelf in the pantry or on the counter. If the lunch boxes are clean and in their place, I'm happy to make your lunch. If it's not cleaned out or not in its place, it'll be up to you to make your own lunch. And then you can ask, is there anything you'd like to do to help yourself remember to unload that lunchbox and put it in the pantry? He might want to make a sign in pictures or words to remind himself, since you won't be reminding. And of course, make sure everyone has a clear understanding. Just so we're on the same page, can you repeat back to me your responsibility for lunch boxes and what I've decided I'll do about making lunches? So now you've trained and empowered your child. You've revealed what could happen, and you told your child what you're willing to do. The next step is to do a practice run so they can see exactly what's expected. So if your practice run doesn't go that well, go ahead and help them put together a lunch for that morning. Then encourage them to tweak their system a bit, because the next morning they're going to be totally on their own. Then it's time to really put the tool to work. The morning after your practice run, you can confidently follow through because there are no excuses. Your kids know the new deal and they can manage for themselves. Now, this part will be hard, but please don't remind them or nag them. Otherwise, this becomes your problem again. Simply let the tool do its work, and your kids will quickly learn to remember to clean out their lunch boxes, or they'll be making their own lunches, and that's fine too. Decide what you will do works for laundry as well. Just tell your kids that laundry days are Tuesday and Friday, and that clothes need to be in the hamper. If the clothes are in the hamper, you'll wash them with the rest of the laundry. If not, it's up to your kids to wash them, or they can wait to the next laundry day. Decide what you will do for any situation you find yourself constantly nagging and reminding about. The next tool I want to tell you about is another parental favorite. It's called Asked and Answered. This is the tool to use when your kids constantly want to negotiate with you or pester you to get a yes answer. This comes from Lynn Lott, co-author of the Positive Discipline series of books, and it is so powerful, I can't wait to share it with you. There are 5 simple steps to begin using this tool, so I'll take you through each one of them, and then you'll use it the next time your child makes a request that you deny, but she tries to negotiate. Say, for instance, your 6-year-old asks to walk to the park, which happens to be a half a mile away, all by yourself. You say no, of course, but then she follows up with, please, I'll be really careful. All my friends get to do it. Please, Mom. This is when you launched the Asked and Answered tool. So step 1, after the pleading, you respond with, have you ever heard of Asked and Answered? And she'll probably say no. Step 2, did you ask me about walking to the park alone? She'll say, yeah, I did. Then step 3, you ask, did I answer your questions? She'll say yes, and she'll probably grumble a little bit. And then you continue with step 4. Do I look like the kind of mom who will change my mind if you ask me the same thing over and over? And you'll probably get a look, and she might grunt and walk away, or some other reaction. And then step 5, you'll say, asked and answered. So step 1, have you ever heard of asked and answered? Step 2, did you ask me about walking to the park alone? Step 3, did I answer your question? Step 4, do I look like the kind of mom, dad, grandma, babysitter, teacher who will change my mind if you ask me the same thing over and over? Step 5, asked and answered. Do this a few times with each child, and then after that, all you have to say to that child is, asked and answered, when they try to badger and negotiate you into changing your mind. Then just ignore any further arguing or begging. Walk away or withdraw from conflict if she tries to engage you in a power struggle. And whatever you do, don't give in, because you'll only reinforce the negotiating and the whining. Parents love asked and answered. Now, let's move on to a tool to use when you'd like your kids to cooperate or help out, but you're trying to minimize your ordering, correcting, and directing. This tool is called Invite Cooperation, and it's a way to communicate that's not going to put our kids on the defensive. To use it, you respectfully invite your kids to contribute to a task, but you don't require them to. You'll ask them in a way that's respectful and upbeat, but we're not demanding, we're inviting. You can say something like, any help you guys can offer with clearing these dishes will be so appreciated. Or, who's up for putting on a bathing suit and helping wash the car? Or, anything you guys can do to help with unloading the groceries would be awesome. The key is to use this tool when you're okay with either outcome. You might invite cooperation and get 0 response. That's okay. It's all on your kids' terms. Any help your kids want to give is great, but we're not going to hold them to a big commitment. Whatever help they do give, encourage and show appreciation without demanding more. Over time, when you use Invite Cooperation with all the other empowering tools, you'll find that you'll get a positive response pretty much every time you ask. The reason Invite Cooperation is so effective is because you put the request out there in a respectful and upbeat way, and it's on your kids' terms. They get a positive hit of power. They get to feel good about helping you, which it makes it more likely that that'll happen again in the future. And here's a pro tip. The first couple times you use Invite Cooperation, make sure the task is something they might find fun, right? Who can help me dish up the ice cream for Sundays? Or any help I can get loading the beach gear into the car would be fabulous. Then, when you invite help for cleaning out the garage, your kids will have some good experiences in the bank and be more likely to pitch in. Whenever you can, invite cooperation instead of demanding compliance. The tone in your home will sound so much more peaceful, and your kids will feel good about the contributions they make on their terms. The final power diffusing tool I want to talk about is called What is Your Plan For? I mentioned this briefly in session 3, but it warrants some more detailed explanation here. This is a tool to address all the nagging and reminding we tend to do with our kids. Think about it. How many of our interactions with our kids sound like, remember your homework, practice the piano, pick up your toys? It's no wonder our words start to fall on deaf ears. Plus, we get eye rolling and heavy sighs or just storming out sometimes. It's no fun for anyone. And of course, our kids are frustrated with all these commands. In fact, it's very likely they'll exert their power passive-aggressively, just ignoring the requests altogether. But we're going to change things up by asking questions rather than barking orders and shifting the responsibility to our kids' shoulders. So instead of saying, you really need to get that English essay done, we're going to ask, what is your plan for getting your English essay done? Instead of commanding them to practice their piano, we'll ask, what is your plan for making sure you're ready for your next piano lesson? What is your plan for the science fair project? What is your plan for getting your laundry done? It's a much more empowering approach because it assumes they already have a solid plan in place. If they don't, it allows them to save face and quickly come up with something in the moment. When they come up with a plan, you can say, that sounds great. I knew you had it under control. What is your plan for also gives your kids some practice in advanced planning, even if it's barely in advanced planning. But most importantly, they get a boost of power when they decide how to complete their responsibilities. And like so many of these tools, when we use respectful, empowering communication, the majority of the time, when we need them to just do it because it needs to be done or because I said so, they're much more likely to cooperate with a good attitude. I'm so excited for you to put these tools into practice so you can feel the change in energy in your house. Give the tools a try this week and see how your kids respond. This lesson was all about preventing and diffusing power struggles. Up next, we'll talk about the third mistaken goal of behavior, which is revenge. I'll see you soon.